Hello, and welcome to a conversation with Coleman Watts. This is part of my interview series with skeptical activists and science communicators for my Skeptical Inquirer online column. Welcome, Coleman, and thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Rob. Great to see you again. Just saw you in North Carolina.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. That was an interesting excursion.
That was
So I
fun.
wanted to interview you because I loved your show, Think This Through, and I wanted to
Thank
promote
you.
it to folks who follow Skeptical Inquirer and CFI, but maybe haven't stumbled across your show. By the way, people, it's Think This Through, not to be confused with Think That Through or Think It Through, which are also YouTube channels I'm sure you know about. So,
Well, it's funny because I originally wanted the title of my show to be Think It Through, and then my lovely and intelligent wife thought it through and said, Coleman, do you know what the acronym for that channel would be? I would have gotten no end of comments saying, you really didn't think that through, did you?
I didn't watch any of their videos when I saw that name, so I'm wondering if it's appropriate for the initialism.
I have
I
no
don't
idea.
know. So, can you give the viewers your elevator speech as to who you are and what you do?
Well, hey, I'm Coleman Watts. So I run this YouTube channel that has a skeptical bent on things that are happening in the world or things that have happened in the world, um, inspired by other YouTube shows, other skeptics, inspired by people like James Randi or Captain Disillusion, people who are or the genetically modified skeptic, or people who are um, trying to put science first in their content rather than sensationalism, which is really rewarded on YouTube. So I'm I'm trying to do a little bit of both. I'm trying to promote science and skepticism, but also have fun doing it, and also have fun doing the shows and doing the presentations and play multiple characters and wear wigs sometimes and do different kinds of skits.
The fun actually comes across, and we're going to talk a little bit about it later. But you enthralled us all with that kind of a performance at the Skeptic Camp in North Carolina too. So to let viewers know, this is actually the second time I'm interviewing you. The first was for an audio-only audience, and I interviewed you just a few weeks ago while we were in North Carolina for the Skeptic Zone. And during our adventures for the Triangle Skeptics' first ever Skeptic Camp. And I guess we should fill viewers in on what's that all about. Had you ever heard of Skeptic Camps before?
I had never been to a skeptic camp before. The first I heard about any skeptical events in person actually was because I stumbled across the Captain Disillusion YouTube channel, and he did a few shows about James Randi's event, the Amazing Meeting. And by the time I watched those videos, the Amazing Meeting wasn't happening anymore, and I thought, I've missed my lifetime opportunity to do this sort of thing, but then found Psychon because I was searching. I was like, do they do any events like this anywhere in the world? And found that I would have to go all the way to Las Vegas, but I did make the trek in 2022 and am going to be going again this year. So looking forward to seeing you there.
Oh, fantastic. I was going to ask you if you're coming this year. So how did you learn
It's
officially
great.
about the one that we went to in North Carolina I'm talking about?
From you. We were chatting about doing this interview, and you said, by the way, I'm going to be in North Carolina that weekend that we were thinking about doing. And I said, what are you going to be doing in North Carolina? And then you told me about it, and we reached out to Susan, and she said, well, why don't you come speak at the event? And so I got to do my first ever live performance speech about what I do and about skepticism, which was great. I had a blast doing that.
And a performance it was. I don't think of all the conferences I've ever gone to and all the talks I've ever seen, I never saw somebody put on a beard and a hat and do accents.
I have to get into character here. Freedy longed for gentler medicine that wasn't so heinous. He had two great ideas which he pulled out of his anus. First, that the medicine should also be the disease. He called this the law of similarities.
That's
I was going to bring my
amazing.
whole Sherlock outfit, but I thought I wouldn't be able to change in time to do that live.
So your talk there specifically was about your journey, and I found that fascinating. Like, give us a little insight into, yeah, how did you become? You weren't always skeptic. Anyone I ask that question to is like, no one's, oh yeah, I was a skeptic from the time I was 5. No one ever says that. So, like, what's your story?
No, I mean, I wish that I had encountered more of this stuff when I was young, but what I did encounter was uh, I encountered a lot of new age and alternative ideas and a few conspiracy theories and alternate explanations for weird science, unexplained mysteries. I read a lot of science fiction when I was growing up. It was all really fun stuff. But as I said in my presentation, I I think that my brain is pretty normal as human brains go. I don't have any other frame of reference, but I guess I'm pretty normal. And so my brain wasn't categorizing things according to the scientific method. It was categorizing things according to what sparked my interest, what felt cool or interesting or useful. And so all of those little tidbits, whether it was real science or pseudoscience, would get just tucked away. And if something came along, like a very convincing documentary about what really happened on 9/11, for instance, I could be taken in, and I was taken in by things like that. And so I found myself in the mid 2010s going down some YouTube rabbit holes and getting sucked in by people who so there was this one YouTuber slash podcaster, and I didn't mention him in my presentation, but I'll go ahead and name him here. His name was Stefan Molyneux, and he branded himself as a philosopher. And what he ended up doing was drifting more and more towards the alt-right. And so he was claiming to be scientific and logical, but ended up uh, just spreading some views that became over the years increasingly bigoted, and more conspiratorial, in something that one analyst I listened to recently labeled the grift drift, which is a fun term. So drifting more towards the grift of sensational culture war topics that get people fired up, and end up, pushing people towards a certain way of thinking. Um, and so I got pushed towards that way of thinking. Um, and honestly, I can't really take any credit for getting out of it. The people that were around me who were also into that stuff ended up being having some very destructive and dysfunctional personalities that just sort of shook my life apart, and I couldn't be in that world anymore. And so once I got away from those people and started having less of that influence, the my perspective changed, and I started looking at alternative explanations for things. And um, and one of the things that was really pushed on me when I was in that bubble was you have to question everything. And so actually that started me on questioning some of the things I'd believed in the past. So when I got into that conspiratorial world bubble, I was questioning things that I believed before, like New Age beliefs, and realizing, oh, well, there's actually not that much to energy healing or chakras or crystals and things. And then once I got away from those influences, I started applying that same question everything logic to the conspiracy theories that they had been pushing and question those. And I was like, there has to be a better way to do this. And that's when I stumbled upon, because I was looking at that point, some of the good science communicators and the good skeptics content that's out there, and finally thought, aha, there is a better way than just going along with whatever is sensational or, or fun or interesting or smacks of conspiracy. There's an actual scientific method you can follow, and that other people are following. And and so I started getting more into skeptical content, and here we are.
So your views changed because you did exactly what conspiratorialists are always saying, do your own research. And you did your own research and you came to the conclusion that they're wrong.
Exactly. They tell you to do your own research. They don't tell you how to research though.
Mhm.
Right. Do your own research in the conspiracy world means just watch their videos. But that's not research, as we know. And so I started learning about how to do actual research and how to follow up actual sources. And it's a lot of work. I have to admit, I don't research everything that I see online because who has time for that? I can't follow every single source. But when I make my videos, I do try to do as much research as I can to, not be wrong in the things that I say. I don't just get on camera and start talking about things that I think are probably true or that just confirm my biases. I will go in and fact check the things that I'm saying on my videos because,
So,
uh,
so you must have. I'm just assuming this because of the quality of your videos and the work that you present, that you must have a whole team of researchers behind you, right?
wouldn't that be great?
Like John Oliver, just to pick a name at random.
What I wouldn't give to have a team like that. It's just me. I would love to work with more people on this show, but right now it's just me, and I'm just doing everything I can myself. If I had more than one person working on this, then I'm sure I could manage to crank out a lot more videos than I do. As it is, I'm lucky if I can get more than one a month.
Wow.
So
So you do have one person at least helping with your show, at least on camera. I have seen your wife, as it turns out.
she she enjoys it, and she's inspired me with some of the scripts that I've written. Some of the jokes are thanks to her, and definitely her cameos. She's had a hand in figuring out how that's going to work and what wigs we're going to wear.
But med school back then was just a little different than it is today.
Time for your leeches now.
You might take classes like how to suck out foul humors with leeches or the healing powers of mercury and radium. What they didn't teach about was viruses and bacteria because those hadn't been discovered yet. Science was pretty new and competing with a lot of other fun ideas like exorcism.
One of her big contributions was to say let's dress up like Fabio on the roller coaster and let's reenact that scene.
It seems like you have like a team of video professionals also behind your work because you do amazing stuff. You split yourself into two and join and amazing animations. And again, looks like a professional team of videographers are doing your. But again, how many people do you have doing that?
It's me.
So
Um,
where did you learn that kind of stuff?
I've been doing it for a long time. When I was in college, I got into learning how to use Final Cut Pro. I was making videos with my friends when I was in high school. When I was after college, I started working for an arts camp where I was working with school-age kids, producing videos, and we would make a video every week, and I would workshop them writing the script, and then I would do all the editing. So I had to learn how to do the editing on the computer really fast, and learn all the shortcut keys and learn how to do the cuts as quickly as I could, and also throw in as many effects as I could. And I just have a blast with it. I have a lot of fun with it. And so there's always a trade-off between how much time you're going to put into it and the quality that you're going to get out of it. And so, the more time I spend like obsessing over every frame of my video, the fewer videos I get to make, and the more,
Mm.
and the more bunk gets produced in the meantime while I'm scrambling to catch up.
And the video editing magic even was on display at our Skeptic Camp. I've never seen anyone again at a conference point the laser beam at the television where your video was in. It causes it to burst into flames. It was very unexpected and clever. So, what demographic do you consider to be your target audience?
Um, it seems like, according to YouTube, I think it's mostly males, um, middle-aged males who are watching my channel. I don't have millions of subscribers yet, but I I can call my show the soon to be popular YouTube series. But so far the people that have been watching it are people who I assume are about my demographic, and I think that's probably because people enjoy somebody that they can relate to. So I don't know this for a fact. I would have to go back and fact check if I was going to put it in an episode, but I imagine that middle-aged women tend to watch middle-aged women on TV and on YouTube, and middle-aged men tend to watch middle-aged men, and young boys tend to watch young boys, and young girls tend to watch young girls. So I can reach people who relate to me, and then hopefully with the presentation that I'm doing, I can reach more people than that, and people can say, hey, this old guy's pretty funny. I'll watch him, even though, you know.
Geesh, old guy. Okay, it's all relative. So how do you pick your topics?
Well, I pick things that are interesting to me, and I pick things that I feel like I could have something to say about. So my last video was about John Oliver's UFO episode and picking that apart.
John Oliver just made a show about UFOs! I am beside myself. John Oliver's UFO episode was actually better than I expected.
This is an area where it is easy to fall into one of two camps.
Check.
Hardcore skeptics who roll their eyes at the whole subject, and true believers who are convinced everything has a fantastical explanation.
Well, I don't think I'm in either of those camps. I'm just here for the science, whether the explanation ends up being fantastical or not.
And I had a lot of fun doing that, because when I saw his show, I had already seen Brian Dunning's The UFO Movie They Don't Want You to See. I had already read up on it. I had already, there's a series being done by Stephen Greenstreet, who is debunking the Skinwalker Ranch crowd, and
Which
how
are
that
large overlap with UFO believers, by the way. Most people don't realize that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a whole government program that turned out to be based on Skinwalker Ranch. And so I had seen all of that stuff. And so then when I saw John Oliver's video, I was underwhelmed and felt like I had a lot to say about it. So I jumped on that and as quickly as I could wrote a script, which takes me forever. I'm a very slow writer, but I quickly wrote a script and got it out within about a week. So kind of rode the tail end of that wave of his show coming out. But some people watched it, some people liked it, and I'm going to keep going.
So regarding that particular video, right? I've seen your videos before. That one really jumped out at me because I watched the John Oliver video when it came out on YouTube, and I was disturbed because he basically equated the true believer community equally with scientific skeptics, and we're both wrong, right? And it seemed, oh my God. And I usually like his content, and I was shocked at that. And then quickly I saw other scientists and skeptics posting their own reviews of that, mostly text-based. I think Steve Novella did one on his neurological blog, and I saw somebody else do something like that. And then I saw yours, and yours was like the epitome of, right, this is a great pushback.
Well, thank you. So yes, I try to pick topics that I feel like I have something to say, and I feel like I can do it justice, because there's a lot of things that I don't know about. I'm just one person, and I just have this one little brain. But I like reading, I like learning, I like finding out about new things, and sometimes I will do a topic where I don't know that much about it, and that turns out to be hard because then you have to do a lot of reading and research. A couple years ago, I read an article on a science blog about the placebo effect, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. Like, I didn't know this, that there's more to the placebo effect than the sort of urban legend version that if you take a pill, it can actually influence your psychology and make you think that you're getting better.
You know how the placebo effect works, right? Sure you do, because like the majority of people, you know that you're above average intelligence, and you've heard it before tossed around in conversation and on social media, so you know exactly what it means without even needing to look it up and make sure your assumptions are right. That's how smart you are. Obviously, the placebo effect works like this. You take a potion that you think will make you win at Quidditch, but your friend Harry actually switched the potions and gave you a goblet of water. But that tricks your brain to feel like you're better at Quidditch, and even though you only took a placebo, you're filled with so much confidence that you actually do win at Quidditch. But what if a grumpy old Jedi told you,
every word of what you just said was wrong?
It's so easy to just repeat what you've heard, and I'm guilty of doing that too. It's great to actually dive into this stuff and see, is this really true?
Yeah, that was a real interesting one. Now, of course, other ones I've watched is like, okay, you know, there's clearly nonsense, and it's amazing to me that so large a percent of the population believes this stuff. One of the ones you did with chakras, another one was homeopathy. Both also great, takedowns of those. And it's unfortunate it's necessary to keep doing that kind of thing, but I mean, the CFI has lawsuits in process against the major manufacturers, well, not manufacturers, the sellers of homeopathic medicine, because they put it on the shelf right next to real medicine.
It has struck me that if it had been, because I'm relatively new at doing this, every topic is fresh for me and I can have a fresh take on it. But if I had been doing this for years, I might start to get annoyed that the same conspiracy theories and the same pseudoscience keeps getting recycled and keeps getting rehashed over and over again. It's like, how many times do you have to debunk the same damn thing?
So I also, you had a nice one on the moon landing denial. And that's just not never ending. Even though, we've had high resolution orbiters going around the moon taking pictures of the other landing sites. No, those are faked too. It just doesn't end. And younger people who weren't around way back in 1969 and ish, they even have less reason to believe it was true because it's just something they heard about.
Exactly. The first time that I heard the moon landing was faked, I was like, "Oh, wow." I mean, I wasn't there. I didn't see it on TV. And it just sort of shook up I mean, it's kind of fun to have everything shaken up a little bit and also to think that you've just been given some insider information that other people don't know about.
I think that's
So
a main point. People who believe these conspiracies want to believe them because they think they're onto something special, which makes them special. Right?
it does give you a special feeling. It does. But being a debunker can also give you a special feeling.
I won't deny that. Sometimes it does seem like an unending, unwinnable uphill battle, unfortunately. I'm deep into the subject of trying to, show fake psychics and mediums. And you get two aspects. You see polls that something like 50-60%, depending what poll it is, believe in some aspect of ESP or your psychic clairvoyance or mediumship. And then you get other people like Wikipedia editors who say, we don't even have to put on a psychic's page that this is fake because everyone knows it's fake. Like they're living in two different worlds.
Yeah, it's still very popular and it's been going on, and it's interesting from the anthropological point too, because I just read a book about Harry Houdini's run-ins with the I think it was called The Witch of Lime Street, and it was about how he spent years debunking spiritualist mediums who were doing their entire routine in dark rooms, right? Like that was their thing. Like you had to turn off all the lights in order for it
Of
to
course.
work. And that's out of vogue now, but it's what we're seeing now is just repackaged, rehashed, the same ideas as that, but just with, now with the word quantum thrown in or something like that. That makes it all feel fresh and updated.
And that particularly bugs me because, yes, mediumship to contact the dead, you had to be in a darkened room and call them out, and then ectoplasm would show, right? Now, people go on Zoom. I can do it over Zoom. They'll have a session with 50 people. Yeah, yeah, you have a relative who died with the letter J. Yeah, I'm in contact with him from halfway across the world. Like, wow, technology changed, so the spirit world communication changed. It's quite astounding how that's coincidental.
Right. We don't have to be holding hands anymore.
Nope.
And
Or the dark
it's,
room.
yeah, as long as I get paid, it's gonna work.
So
Yeah, and
speaking of ghosts and spirits, I have to mention this. While we were in Raleigh, as part of the Skeptic Camp finale, the day after all the talks, we went on a ghost tour. We went to the Mordecai, I think that's how you say it,
that's
the
right.
Mordecai house tour. And this is a mansion. It's supposedly one of the most haunted places in the world, right? And they claim, yes, you're going to see paranormal activity there. Did we find any paranormal activity in the house?
It was a nice old house. The tour guide didn't even really just seem to know that much about ghosts in the house. She told one story about a picture that fell down, and I don't know what could possibly explain that other than ghosts. Uh, that was that was about it. It's always underwhelming, and these stories, you know, in order for a good story to take people's imagination, you have to embellish it a little bit. You know, it needs to have some hooks. And you know, that one of the videos that I did, the moon landing one, I talked about stories and narratives because um, there's there's elements of a good story that, you know, novel authors know, people like Stephen King would know, that you have to capture people's imaginations with something fantastic, something cool, something interesting, something creepy, and that story will circulate and people will retell it and maybe embellish it even more as they're retelling it. That's so much more interesting than the mundane details of, you know, the actual tour that we took of the actual house where you know, we saw the paintings of the people and we saw their furniture and, you know, we saw their books on the shelf and you know, learned a little bit about the history of the family. You know, that's not as fun as hearing about, you know, ghost coming out of the ceiling or something
And
like
flipping
that.
pictures down, yes. I was actually on the tail end of the tour, and the people had filed out of the room to the next place with Kenny Biddle, of all people, who was also at our Skeptic Camp and did a talk. And you know, being a former ghost hunter, he knew all about the rumors here about what was supposed to happen. And there was one particular picture, which I think was pointed out on the tour. But after they left, Kenny and I stayed there. The thing was, if you insulted the person in the picture or said something they didn't like, that's when the picture would fall. We did that. We did that for 5 minutes. Nothing happened. Now, it was broad daylight, and I suppose ghosts don't like daylight because all the ghost hunters always go to these places at night, so maybe that's the problem.
Maybe you have to insult them and smack them around a little bit and then it'll fall.
So, so have you ever decided to do a video on a topic, started researching it, and then found out, nah, there's not enough here, or maybe for some other reason canceled it?
Um, Only because of the ADD part of my brain where I'll start working on something and then something else will pop up and I'll be like, ooh, let me do that instead, which is terrible for productivity. But I do so I have some folders of videos that I might have made about some there's when I'm scrolling Facebook, because I guess because I've clicked on the wrong things when I was researching stuff online, I get lots and lots of ads for Gaia and
Oh, the streaming
um,
service. Yes.
yeah, Gaia, the streaming service for like new age bunk.
Uh,
And I did a video about them. So that's why I guess Facebook likes to show me those ads. And there's another ad that I keep getting when I'm scrolling Facebook for something called Mind Valley, which is supposed to teach you how to tap into your brain from another dimension. So like the idea that in the multiverse you know how to play the piano, so you get in touch with that other version of you in
oh,
the
I like that
multiverse and you
idea.
learn how to play the piano. They sell a course for that for, you know, just like $69.95, and you can learn how to jump into the multiverse, which is a pretty good deal, I think.
Well,
Um,
for all the things that you could learn, probably one of me is a brain surgeon. Another one is, yes, a concert pianist and airline pilot. Oof, cool.
Yeah. And yes, there was a recent Hollywood movie that has that exact same plot. So, you know, who knows who ripped off who, but
Which one?
um,
Which one? What?
everything all at once, everything
Oh,
everywhere
okay.
all
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah.
once.
I can see that. Yep. Yep.
So I'm tempted to do a video about them, and I screenshot their ads, and I'm collecting them in a folder, and but you know that I'm gonna have to do research, and I'm to learn who these guys are. So I'll see how I can do it. I'm sure it would be funny because these people seem quite funny. They're very pretentious about their spiritual abilities, and they've also picked a really funny name like Mind Valley. Your mind is your brain and valley is a low point, so you know it doesn't sound very good really when you think about it. There are a lot of things going on in the world that are sad and tragic and horrifying, and um and it's hard to, I don't want to make light
Right.
of those things. I don't want to say, I don't want to, find humor in some of the horrible abuse that people experience in cults and high control religions, for example. Um, the I will try, if I'm going to do something like that, I would want to make fun of the leader.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's a
and
Netflix series I just watched, How to Become a Cult Leader, I think was the name of it on Netflix. It's short, 6 or 7 episodes, and that's what it
mhm.
kind of does. But the downside is it's also showing how gullible people are and how their lives are destroyed by people who will take advantage of them. So
Yeah, well,
that was a hard line for that series to actually walk, I think.
yeah, well, how gullible we are, and
Yeah.
that's something that I hope to communicate in my show is that we can all fall for this stuff, and we all have, maybe without even knowing it, fallen for something at some point.
So some of these things are more dangerous than others. What do you think is the most dangerous conspiracy that a lot of people believe in right now?
Well, there seems to be a convergence of a lot of different conspiracy theories into this into this big um, politicized story about the deep state and cabals and things that are that I know people who are into these sorts of conspiracy theories that believe the country is headed towards civil war and is irredeemable, and that the people who don't believe the way that they believe, are basically not fully human in some way. And so there's some very extreme sort of conspiracy thinking that are driving some elements of politics, which I think is dangerous, because ideally people's political choices should be based on informed decisions that is based on real information and
Mhm.
not phony conspiracy theories that are coming from, possibly even foreign agents that are planting disinformation online. So I'm concerned about that. I have to say I am. I also think that ever since the pandemic, the medical misinformation has really amped up, and that's also been a problem for different reasons. Um, Actually, there's quite an intersection between the political conspiracies and the medical and
Yes.
anti-vax conspiracy theories. Unfortunately, they're all sort of converging into this big hodgepodge of, this big us versus them movement. But, a lot of people got sick needlessly, and a lot of people had health problems needlessly because they have been taught to not trust the medical establishment. And, just what we know about virology, you know, it's inevitable that there's going to be new emergent diseases, and the next one could be even worse. And what happens when we've got a population that's already primed
Yep.
to ignore medical science and to ignore medical advice, or to not just ignore it, but push back on it and say that they know better than the doctors? The other thing is that I've been very hesitant to take on vaccine conspiracies because social media has really clamped down on any speech about that. So, the AIs that take down medical misinformation usually can't tell the difference between medical misinformation and people who are showing and then debunking medical misinformation. And so, there's another YouTuber called Dr. Wilson who does a show called Debunk the Funk, and he's had some of his videos taken down where he debunks a medical misinformation video, and where the original video is still up. So there's a lot of problems with the way that social media is being handled, and I talked about that a lot in my presentation as well, about how I don't think the social media companies are being responsible towards um, factual information and helping people think critically and helping people be informed.
Okay, so last question in this regard. If you could sit down with a scientist or somebody who was a skeptic, and talk about the favorite topic of that person, who would it be?
I really wish I had gotten to meet Carl Sagan. I would have loved that. I read his book, The Demon Haunted World, and was just inspired by the way that he um, talked so compassionately about people who believe in pseudoscience and conspiracy theories. And he talked about his own journey, about how he, used to be a true believer in UFOs until he went to college and learned real astronomy and learned the scientific method, and then tried to apply it to prove the things that he wanted to be true, and they turned out to not be true. And he was disappointed by that, but he accepted the science and he accepted that the conclusions were sound because the methodology was sound. And then he went out and talked to people who believe things that they read in tabloids, who believe things that they've heard. This was before rumors were being spread online. This was when rumors were being spread, mouth to mouth or in tabloids or other places. And he was very compassionate because he said, these people are curious about the world. These people want to know what's going on, and they just don't have good sources of information. They don't have a media that cares about the truth. They have a media that cares about sensationalism, and that's what they're being fed. But people are hungry for truth. People who believe in conspiracy theories, it's not because they like to be lied to. People want to know the truth. Conspiracy theorists believe that they're chasing the truth, that they're pursuing the truth. And that's what I believe when I believe in conspiracy theories. I believe that I was uncovering more and more truth. And so people want it. They're hungry for it. They're hungry for knowledge and truth and science, and it's just not readily available in our culture. Or not enough of it is. And so that's why we have groups like the Skeptical Inquirer, and I'm very grateful for it. And another thing that people need is good, healthy social influences, because we're social animals and we tend to believe what our friends and family believe.
The people in your bubble. The people in your bubble.
We tend to go along with that. And so, you could be presented with good quality information, but if it goes against the zeitgeist of the people around you, it's not going to penetrate more likely than not, because it's more important to maintain those social relationships than it is to know the truth about everything.
So you mentioned you're going to SciCon and the speaker list is out. Who are you looking forward to most to see there?
Oh my goodness. Well, I always enjoy listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He came up in this video I'm doing about Terrence Howard, which is kind of funny. Terrence Howard presented his kooky ideas to Neil and said that Neil politely offered him corrections, and then is no longer answering his pestering questions about, well, why isn't 2 times 2, or why isn't 1 times 1 equal 2? Come on, Neil. And so I'll enjoy
it's the
enjoy
new
hearing
math.
enjoy hearing if he has anything to say about that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to all the speakers, and I'm especially looking forward to seeing everybody again. It's great to make these social connections. It's great to just see more people who are into this stuff. And this movement needs to grow. We need to have more people. We need to have, I'm hoping to push out into a wider audience, and not just be in the skeptic space, but just to try to be in the entertaining YouTube space in general, to try to bring more people in, because skepticism should be fun. And I was thinking about the fact that Carl Sagan he put on a conference about UFOs at a time when other scientists didn't think it was a good idea, because he invited both the skeptics and the believers to the conference and gave them both equal time to speak. And I'll bet that was interesting. I would have loved to be a
I had
fly
not
on the
heard
wall.
about that.
He did it. And I think that the skeptics community could do more of those, I don't want to say sensational, but attention-grabbing things that get the message out there more and get the idea of skepticism out there more, and attract more of a general audience of people who are just on the fence or curious, to really engage with these ideas. So I'd love to see some of that stuff happen too.
Okay, so with that, we should call this a wrap. Thanks so much for joining me today, Coleman.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
I'm looking forward to seeing you again in person real soon in October.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
See you in October.